Hello and welcome to the Acting Coach Network podcast. I'm your host, Savannah Madden, acting coach, award-winning theatre school owner and confidence coach for small business owners who want to grow their businesses with confidence, resilience and to step into their CEO mindset without burning out. Today's guest is someone who has built something quite extraordinary. James Aconley opened his first Pauline Quirke Academy franchise back in 2013. Since then, he and his wife Nat have grown their business across 4 territories, now working with over 500 children every single weekend across North and East Yorkshire. Alongside running multiple theatre schools full-time, James also produces youth theatre through his company, Be Amazing Arts, and runs 2 adult musical theatre choirs. At the heart of everything he does is a belief that confidence, life skills and personal growth matter just as much as performance. But scaling a creative business brings its own challenges. How do you keep the personal touch when you cannot be in 4 places at once? How do you build teams who truly believe in your ethos? And how do you make sure that the people behind the brand remain visible and valued as the business grows? In this episode, James and I talk about leadership, team culture, confidence building, and what it really takes to grow a performing arts business without losing its soul. James Aconley, welcome to the Acting Coach Network podcast.
Thank you. Hi, Savannah. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thank you very much. It is great to have you here. I have never met a principal of 4 Pauline Quirke Academies. What a mean feat. But as I like to say at the beginning of all of the episodes, let's start at the beginning. What originally drew you into performing arts education and what made you take the leap to open your first franchise back in 2013?
So I think many of us, some of those kind of best memories of childhood and stuff is kind of from those settings and situations. You know, I of course was involved in like youth theatre and Saturday performing arts schools and all that kind of thing as I was growing up. And obviously that's done things like develop confidence, obviously started my love for the performing arts, introduced me to that kind of world. But also, I suppose, more importantly, kind of the confidence building and social skills side of things as well. And I think now as an adult looking back, I think it was those experiences, probably more than anything else, that really gave me that courage and that feeling that, you know, I could be confident in who I was and I could go and, you know, take on the world and do anything really. And I think, you know, as I kind of moved into kind of later stages of childhood and into kind of adulthood, if you like, I think it was always something that I would be quite interested in doing whilst I was at university. So I decided to go to university. I didn't go to drama school. And I think it was at that point that I realised, you know, perhaps I don't want to be a performer as such. I didn't quite know what it was going to look like, but I think I knew it wasn't going to be that. And I was doing various bits of teaching at the weekend in university in York for various other performing arts schools. And you could just see this transformation that was being made. And I think as well, you really get to see people running performing arts schools really, really well. And you also get to see things that perhaps you wouldn't do in your performing arts school. And you can cherry pick the best bits, start to develop your own practice. And then I was kind of leaving university, I found this opportunity in the Stage newspaper. PQA were looking for principals in so many different areas, and one of them listed was York, and it said franchise fee. I was like, let's kind of do this. And funnily enough, I auditioned for the Bridlington Spa summer season and submitted my PQA application on the same day. I thought, no chance for PQA. I might get to do the Brid Spa summer season, and it happened the other way around. And here we are, nearly 15 years, 13, 14 years in the future, doing this full time, along with my wife and our team. And I couldn't ask for a better job. I don't know what else I could do, really, now.
How inspiring. That is absolutely incredible. I think for me, the biggest takeaway from what you just said there is that performing arts education is all about developing those life skills, those confidence skills, as well as the performing arts bit. But, not everybody that comes to your academies, I'm sure, wants to be a screen actor, wants to be in a musical, wants to be an actor or a performer. They might just be there to make some friends, to make themselves be able to put their hand up a little bit more at school, or, whatever their reason is. And it's really clear that that is at the heart of everything that you do. And I love that you thought that you were going to get the part in the Bridlington Sands production, and actually you got selected to move forward as a franchisee.
Yeah, that's it.
That is good. So, as I said in the introduction, you work with around 500 children every weekend across your 4 academies. When you pause and really take that in, how does that feel?
Do you know what's really interesting? I think obviously we're in January now, and we're all feeling a bit more refreshed after the break, and I've come back obviously after a couple of weeks off. And literally last weekend, I was looking around, and you saw all of these children. I was in York this weekend, so that's one of our 4 locations, and I knew that it was happening in the rest of the region as well. And I just thought, isn't it incredible, really, that all of these children and their families have chosen to come to spend time and money, let's be honest, with
Yes,
me and my team. And I just found it really overwhelming. And I don't know what it was, literally just last week. I don't know if it was because you come back with fresh eyes and you can take things in a bit more and you're less tired and all that type of stuff. And I just had that feeling last weekend. And I look at the full journey over the past 13 years, and I started literally just doing it from a desk in my house. I thought, oh, do you know what? This is going to always be a really, really part-time job, a couple of hours in the week doing the admin, and then 3 hours on a Saturday morning teaching. And how that's developed over that time is it's kind of just happened without me type of thing. Well, not without me. Do you know what I mean? In terms
I
of like,
do.
there wasn't a huge plan. I was really, really young when I started. There wasn't a huge plan for this to be what it was going to be. But here we are, and it's a real, real privilege. And I think within that 500 students, you get, as you said before, Savannah, so many different reasons that children might want to come along to the academy, and those reasons can change. As they get older. If we've got some students now
Absolutely. Yeah.
who joined us at the age of 4 and are now 14, 15, 16, 17, and kind of are aging out of our academy sessions, and their needs and wants and their parents' needs and requirements have changed as that's come along as well, and that's been quite interesting to see as well. And it's about ticking all of those boxes every single week, and that's something that I really encourage our team to think about as well when they're planning their sessions and their projects is, are we hitting the mark for those children who really want to take performing arts more seriously, if you like, and they might want to go into that in terms of further education or even a career? But are we also hitting the mark for those children who are coming for the life skills, the confidence building, and then those who are somewhere in between? And yeah, I think if we can unpack projects and classes in that way, we can be so many things for those 500 children and their families at the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems to me, though, that you have very open discussions with your team about it, but they're also able to sprinkle their own influences, their own expertise and personality into the building of their sessions so that they're teaching in their own unique way, but they've got clear pathways or clear markers to kind of hit to make sure that they're supporting all of the children that come to their sessions. And I also like what you said about how you've had students from, maybe as young as 4, coming up to being older teenagers now, and they'll be
Yeah.
ready to sort of fly the PQA nest soon. I've got quite a lot of that going on in my theatre school at the moment. A lot of university and drama school age students who will be flying away because they'll literally be moving somewhere else to go to
Yeah.
uni and things like that. So it's an amazing privilege, isn't it, to be able to watch that growth in young people, especially when they've been with you for a long time and you remember them as a primary school child,
Yeah.
and now,
Yeah, that's it. That's it. We've had one. I remember maybe about 2 years ago now. I was doing a promo stand outside a shopping centre in York, and I had this lady come up to me, and she said, "Do you remember?" And she told me her son's name, and I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And I remember this boy in particular. So he was one of my very first students back in 2013. He must have been don't know, maybe 8, 9, 10 at the time. And he was one of those individuals, as you've just described there, Savannah, who struggled to put their hand up in class. They'd never got their child involved in an activity. And they managed to get him to come to PQA. And it was one of those situations where, we've all been there, where us and the parent are gently but firmly encouraging the children to keep coming into class because we know the benefits that's going to bring. And there was a period of that. And then, in their time at PQA, they went through all of the cycle and did everything we did. And he was a grandparent, said, he's now at university, studying maths, and he's been a drummer and he's been a pianist and all the rest of it at the same time as well. And I thought that was a perfect example, of somebody who has built that confidence and things through what we've done at PQA. And the interesting thing and the beautiful thing was that grandparent was saying, no, she literally said the words, "That's down to you," and PQA, and that is so. It's just so lovely to hear. Do you know what I mean? And
I
it's somebody
do.
there who's gone into something that isn't performing arts, but has kept a sprinkling of that as they've gone along, through their music and that kind of thing too. And yeah, it's that thing and it's that progression. And I think once you've been doing it for a long time, you've got so many examples of that, and it's fab, really.
Yeah. I think when you hear of students who go off and do something that isn't performing arts related, but they've been able to take those skills with them, it is quite remarkable, isn't it? That's so brilliant that they came and found you well,
I
not found
know.
you, but they saw you in the shopping centre
Yeah,
and
yeah,
came up to you and actually said that, because they could have just walked past, couldn't they?
yeah,
And that would
yeah.
have been totally understandable. On this podcast, James, I love to get into the nitty gritty. And what I love is that you run your business alongside your wife, Nat. So what I want to know is, what is it like building something so significant as your Pauline Quirke Academy across your 4 locations together? And how do you navigate the crossover between work and family life?
Right, so it goes up and down, obviously, as you can imagine. So the reason why Nat came on board originally is we got married back in 2019, end of 2019, and we were on our honeymoon after we got married, and we realised I think we took like 2.5, 3 weeks off
Oh,
um,
lovely.
around our wedding. And we've been together for years, like since we were younger. And we realised that we'd never had that long a break together. We never spent that much time together. And she was in a corporate 9 to 5, Monday to Friday job, and I was obviously, due to the nature of my work, doing lots of evenings and weekends. And we literally sat there and did a couple of calculations. And we're like, could we make this work? Like, could we do this together? Obviously, she comes from a real sales and marketing and kind of operations background, and obviously I do and we thought that could be a perfect combination. Can we make it work financially? And we thought, you know what, let's give it a go. So we went back home, Nat handed in her notice, and then we went into the pandemic, which was, as you can imagine, absolutely horrific. But
Yes.
past all of that, we're now in a bigger position than we ever was. I think that we complement each other quite well. It is difficult. We have an office. I'm sat in my office here, which is it's 5 minutes drive away from our house. And that really helps because we can shut the door and go home. We've got a 2-year-old now. Our daughter was born in July, a couple of years ago. And that's made everything different because, like, you have to put your phone down because you have to have that quality time with your family, and that's been really, really great. Obviously, being a parent as well, I didn't realise that this would be the case, but being a parent has changed me completely as a theatre school owner and as a performing arts educator as well. But we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, I think we complement each other well. Everything's a bit more emotionally driven, so if we don't agree, that's more difficult. But it's great, and it means that we can spend time together. We can take days off during the week as a family. We can go off and do whatever we want to do, and we've been able to make that happen. So that's a privilege as well.
Yeah, I can completely relate. I have a 2-year-old as well. So yes, phones down, absolutely. I love that you have an office, though. I think something that probably sounds quite sort of small or obvious probably is making a really big difference, isn't it? Where
Mhm,
you have to actually
mhm.
go there to do your work, and then you have to leave there and hopefully leave the work there as well. Obviously, a bit easier said than done sometimes, but
Is
it
and we've got it
sounds
all on
great.
our phones and stuff, haven't we? So it all slips into each other, but it's all good.
And I imagine as well, having 4 different academies to manage. Have you got AMs and PMs? I know that that's the lingo that PQA use. Have you got 2 academies in each location, or is it just one academy? What's your setup for each
So
location?
In York, we run on a Friday night, a Saturday morning, and a Saturday afternoon. In Scarborough, we're on a Sunday morning. In Hull, we've got an AM and a PM, so a Saturday morning and an afternoon. And then Beverley is a Saturday morning. So on a Saturday
Lovely.
morning, we've got 3 sessions running at once, 2
Yes.
sessions on a Saturday afternoon, and then one on a Friday and a Sunday. So there's myself, there's Nat, and then we've got an academy manager who works for us on a weekend and also does some office hours during the week as well. And we rotate around our Saturday locations. I
Super.
think one of the biggest things for me, though, in terms of that side of things, the managing the multiple locations, it all came about before our daughter was born. Actually, we obviously knew that sometime during July, August, we were going to disappear, and there was going to be no plan for it. As in, we didn't know exactly when it was going to be. It was going to happen during that period, and we wanted to find a way that the team could feel really, really set up for that. If it happened while term was still running, they were going to be fine. If it was happening during summer schools, they were going to be fine. We wanted to make sure that it felt like that for them and for us as well, of course. So it was at that point that I kind of started having a different annual focus in terms of one theme that we could keep coming back to make sure that the teachers and teaching assistants could really feel that the decisions they were making were decisions that I would make if I was there. And so our first one was setting the students up for success. And this was really about if there was a decision that needed to be made creatively or operationally or whatever, and there was potentially 2 different opinions by 2 different members of the teaching team, and I wasn't there to kind of make a decision or help to kind of coach that decision. We decided that the question we were going to ask would be, are we setting the students up for success in this decision? And that could be making sure that our youngest student have got a certain class first because it was going to be better for them in terms of how young they were in their session. Or should we simplify some choreography for a group because potentially they weren't picking it up quite as well? And sometimes if those decisions are made by a couple of individuals, all sorts of other like individual opinions or what they want creatively or their own experiences start coming into the mix, and then it becomes a bit difficult to navigate. So actually we said, right, let's take that choreography example as what we're going to talk about. You know, the musical theatre teacher, they might love that choreography, they might want to keep it in, but another member of the team is saying, yeah, but they're really struggling to pick it up. Okay, so what shall we do? What's going to set those students up for success if they're going to be performing that to their parents in 4 weeks' time? And that could be that we do need to simplify it on this occasion. And since that year, we've had a different area of focus every year. So we've had setting up for students for success. It's about making sure the students feel seen. Just last week at our team meeting, we introduced the kind of concept and idea of making sure that we're giving honest and supportive feedback to parents, you know, whether that's positive feedback or not so positive feedback. And I think by implementing those things and discussing that as a team, it's meant that when I'm not at any one location, it still feels like one of James's PQAs. Does that make sense?
Definitely, because you obviously cannot be in 3 different academies on a Saturday morning or across 4 different locations in 3 days, can you? So having that ethos that runs through your entire team, I imagine, is what makes the children and the parents feel really, really safe and really seen. And it's a very much a trusted decision that's being made in that moment, because it's almost a little bit like, well, what would James say or what would Nat say? And the fact that your team have something to come back to every time to kind of calibrate whether that decision is aligned, I think must
Yeah.
be incredibly helpful for them. Because as well, I don't know who your team is made up of, but you could have so many teachers from so many different backgrounds, walks of life, ages, experience, and the fact that they all have the same thing to kind of come back to, I think is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Managing multiple teams can obviously be complex. particularly, I would say, in creative environments. So what do you think you've learned about leadership as your role has shifted over the years?
I think it's really about, first of all, feeling, and I've given this advice to people before who have moved from either running a school or sessions of their own where they're teaching and then they're bringing in a team, or they were already doing that and now they're going to move to multi-site and they're going to try and do it in two places at once. And it's about finding a time and a place and a group of people around you that you feel comfortable in being able to let go a little bit, or in some cases, let go quite a lot, and trusting that the people are in place and they're going to be able to deliver the product or the service or the training or whatever that you want to have delivered, or that aligns with those things that we've just talked about. So I think that's probably the first thing that I learned quite early on, because it had, let me think, it was about 2 or 3 years in that I was doing it in two places at once. So that was quite early on.
Mhm.
But now there's 25 people on our team, and it was funny. It was probably a year or so ago when we were inviting everybody to the Christmas party. That's what it was. And these names just kept on coming. I turned to Nat, I was like, there's 25 people here that help us to do this thing every weekend, and that trust us as well. And I've gone, yeah, I'll jump into that and I'll be a part of that. That sounds fun. But also that we're responsible for supporting and making sure that they're feeling fulfilled and also delivering what we want them to deliver. And I think then the new area of learning in more recent years has been the idea of not telling them exactly what to do and when to do it. I think it comes in stages. If you go back to that initial stage that I talked about, you're doing it. So, of course, you're going to be kind of telling them, or you're going to be delivering what's happening. It is your decision. And then you go to a case of, you might still be telling people how you want it to work, but you're kind of letting them do it. It's a bit more arm's length. And then you move to this next stage where it's more conceptual, and it's like, let's make projects that deliver this outcome, and that could be being seen, being heard, feeling set up for success. Now, what projects can we make and what classes can we do to make that happen? And I think I'm at that stage now. So it is a constant learning, and yeah, I think that's where we're at in terms of that more kind of concept based thing rather than tangible, here you go, do this. It's less about
Mhm.
that now.
Yeah.
And it's as you said, you kind of hit the nail on the head there, Savannah, in terms of when you've got 25 people, they're coming from all areas of experience.
So
They've
exciting.
worked at lots of different places, or they're brand new to performing arts education. As you know, Savannah, one of our modules is film and television. And actually, when we bring filmmakers into PQA, it's interesting because drama teachers and musical theatre teachers, they've always kind of known or expected that part of their makeup of their kind of career portfolio, if you like, is going to be teaching. And they've picked up those skills along the way. But I think because there's not many people who do, practical filmmaking tuition, both production and screen acting, every single week, there's less filmmakers who kind of A, would have ever thought that that would be a thing that they would do, and B, something that would feel confident with or have the skills to do. And you're kind of coaching and managing and leading for a lot of different reasons. You might be kind of telling them the basics, or you might be nurturing something that's already there, or you might be trying to gently shift and nurture somebody's practice into a different way of working based on what they've done before. So there's all that kind of fits into it as well.
I love that. So firstly, I just love your CEO energy, James. Like you are the calm. Yes, it's really great. And I don't know if you know this, but I started off early on in my teaching career working for two different PQA academies. So I know how the model works, and I think you're so right. The filmmakers that I always worked with, because I worked with various different members of different teaching teams, they were all from filmmaking backgrounds and had barely any teaching or coaching experience, so went on that amazing journey of learning how to interact more with young people and how to deliver their offering in a way where the children could get really absorbed in it and really take on board all of the amazing things that they had to offer. And then obviously they had these wonderful skills to produce this amazing material afterwards as
Yeah.
well. It was so cool. And that's what I really love about PQAs as well, is that we don't really get that many opportunities for screen acting at every performing arts establishment, of course. So that's, it's just really great that you've got such a big group of people from all different facets of life, as it were, and all different stages of their teaching careers. So obviously team culture is evident that is really important to you and you care deeply about it. So is there anything else you would like to add about how you have been able to create that culture so that your team are invested in the bigger picture for PQA? Because for some coaches, it might just be, I just need a summer job doing the summer schools, or I'm an auditioning performer and I need an additional job whilst I'm, trying to find my next contract. Or you might have people that are like, yes, my goal is to be a principal and have my own academy one day, or whatever their goals are. So how do you get everybody invested into your bigger picture within your culture?
So I think the most important thing is realizing and being comfortable with, as a leader, that that's okay. Not everybody on the team is going to be as invested and as passionate about your school as you are, naturally, because it isn't theirs. And they're going to come, as you say, for lots of different reasons. I am very lucky because in my part of the country, there are obviously, it is changing, but there are less opportunities for jobbing actors and performers. I know that some of my colleagues who run schools in other parts of the country, they have teachers coming and going all the time. And we've been really lucky that we've had people who stay for a really, really long time. I think that's partly down to where we are geographically, but also, because we are running sessions from a Friday through to a Sunday, they can, make up quite a substantial amount of their income through working with me and teaching with me, which helps. But obviously there are those who are in there who, like you say, they are jobbing actors. They do just want, they might just be, quite often for summer school, it's quite often ex-PQA students, and they've gone off training somewhere. They're back for summer, and then they'll come and do summer schools with me. That's always really lovely as well. But all of those people, as you said, we want to make sure that they're part of that ethos or that culture or whatever that focus is going to be for that particular period of time. And I think as long as as a leader you're confident and comfortable with the fact that people are in it for lots of different reasons, as long as they can give that for their 3 hours or their 1 week or their 6 hours that they're with you, that is absolutely fine for me. Because I also know that if I've got a teacher who goes off every November to January to go and do Christmas show or a panto, I know they're going to come back and we're going to be able to say, isn't it amazing that this teacher did this? What did you get from that experience and what can you pass on to the students? And if you can kind of sell it to the students and the parents in that really exciting way, I think it's great. And I think, as I said, I'm in quite a nice position that there are always those constant people who have been there for a long time. And I think it's that brings the trust. And I think also makes the personal branding of like myself and Nat being here and being trusted and kind of constant more and more important.
Definitely. And what you said earlier as well about when you progress more into a leadership role, you have to start letting go a lot more of,
Yeah.
more of the teaching side of things, which I absolutely love. And one of my main sort of messages that I like to get out is that delegating is the way forward. Get people in your team to do the jobs that maybe you either don't want to do. Not saying that you don't want to do any teaching, but there are, I'm sure, admin tasks that other people pick up that you're not so keen on, and giving opportunities to other coaches to spread their wings and really offer their fantastic offerings and all the things that they know. But also it's that letting go, so that you can step more into this personal brand and leadership role. And you will only ever find people that are really 70, 80, maybe if you're really lucky, 90% invested in your business, because it's totally fine. They might have other things, as you say, that they're pursuing and are interested in. But if they're giving you their all when they're with you, that's all you can ask for. I absolutely love that. But personal brand is really important when you're a business owner, isn't it? Especially when it's growing. So how do you and Nat make sure your audience see you guys behind the brand, not just the PQA logo? Because obviously that's very prestigious. Lots of people in the performing arts will recognize it instantly, will know it. And how do you get your audience and your parents and clients to feel invested in you guys as people when you're running all 4 of your academy?
So I think, to be honest, I think this is probably our biggest challenge at the moment, and something that me and Nat have really wanted to focus on, probably, certainly maybe since this academic year. It's felt like something that we've wanted to do and build on since around the summertime. It's one of those things, like before I was talking, you get that break from the treadmill and you're like, okay, what can we do better, or what can we change and shift up a bit here? And I think it was one of those moments. And I think coming into a post-pandemic world, which sounds ridiculous because it was a relatively long period of time ago now, but coming into that world, I think more and more families, as we all, I'm the same, I think we all have found such bigger value and importance in terms of that local business, local people supporting local people, and the things that can do for the economy, but also that real community interest and giving back to the community and all of those really, really lovely things. And I think that was always there, but certainly coming out of the pandemic on this side, I think is even more important to people, to everybody. And I think what's always been great about my involvement with PQA is the fact that there's that model there, there's an infrastructure. We can do amazing things like take the children to the West End and cinema screenings and, all the rest of it, that kind of wonderful stuff. But obviously, the challenge that's given is, as more and more people have been interested in local individuals and local businesses and people, is encouraging communities and families in our areas to realise that whilst we have this like national brand umbrella, underneath that and within that is literally a local couple who live in the local area with a child, and we're engaging local teachers and individuals to kind of help nurture that. And we are too a local business. We're just called PQA York or PQA Scarborough or whatever, and that's been our biggest challenge, I think, so far. In terms of ways that we've kind of looked to combat that so far, I used to be, again, pre-COVID, really great at just making videos. I used to do it all the time, literally every week. Then when we closed, I did a Facebook Live every Saturday morning when we would usually be coming into PQA. In fact, I did 4, one on each of our location Facebook pages for however many months it was, which now when you look back was only a small amount of time. But in that time, as you'll remember, it felt completely endless. And I think for a time, it really, really put me off. And I didn't do it for a long time after that. And I've tried to get better at that now. And it's just so simple in terms of, if you put your face out there on the social media platforms, all of those videos, if you went back through my socials, those things have got so much more engagement than, a brand image or a logo or a really heavily like canvaed graphic or whatever. People really like that raw, authentic content. I once heard somebody say that if you look at Richard Branson and Virgin, Richard Branson's got so many more followers on socials than Virgin has. And it's the same for a lot of these like real founder-led brands. The founder has got so many more followers and engaged audience members than the brand itself. And I think that really, really struck me. And I was like, I think I need to build on that. It also means that, and we were talking earlier about people aging out of PQA and wanting to do other things. It means that, if I've got that personal trust and relationship with a family, not just as PQA, it means that, I could offer them lots of other things as well. I run these adult musical theatre choirs for people who potentially are going off into a different career but want to just keep a little kind of fun, social sprinkle of the arts. But also, Be Amazing Arts, our production company, is not just for youth theatre. We make professional theatre with adults as well. And we've had people come on board as semi-pros. So they potentially, had a small fee or expenses or a profit share alongside our pro actors. And that's just given them that stepping stone, that nice gap between doing their like under 18s part-time performing arts tuition through into the profession world. It's kind of that bridging gap. And I think by building that personal brand in terms of who I am as an individual and as a creative, it's helped to allow people to trust in me doing other things as well, if that
Yes.
kind of makes sense.
I was just going to say, you're just building up your know, like, trust factor, aren't you? Because I'm sure you can relate to this when you were talking about your video creation, with your content creation. Anything that I post with, some sort of quote or, as you said, like a Canva graphic or anything like that will never get as much engagement as a video reel of me talking about something, and usually something that's related to nothing to do with business, or nothing to do with performing arts or building confidence. If it's something a little bit more peek behind the scenes, a little bit more personal and stuff, because we're all just nosy Parkers, aren't we? We all just love knowing
Yeah.
what's going on with everybody. But I think obviously we sometimes might just get a little bit thinking like, oh, no one really cares about what I'm up to. But, people do, and people will want to see what's going on in the production company. And I think that's such a lovely environment that you've made for your sort of PQA leavers once they're old enough to sort of, as I said earlier, fly the nest, but they've got something else to go to before potentially like further education or whatever path they choose. But I want to sort of move a bit more now into talking about the other strings to your bow, because you're not just a academy owner of 4 locations. You also produce youth theatre and run adult musical theatre choirs, and obviously you've got your production company as well. So what do those spaces give you creatively that perhaps running your children's classes don't always offer?
So we started, if we talk about Be Amazing Arts, so this is our production company in Youth Theatre. So we started that, first of all, as a platform to take some shows to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival for a couple of years. We just set it up without any kind of other thought than that, wanted to take some shows, and that's what we did. And then again, coming out of COVID, theatres were still closed, and Nat at the time was working in radio sales, and she was talking to one of her clients, which was a local museum, and they'd had lent to them some letters, and it was love letters between 2 people in World War II, and they were like loaned to them by like children and grandchildren and stuff like that. And they were going to make this radio campaign about it, and they were going to tell the story over lots of different radio adverts over a period of time. Nat came down the stairs. She was like, "I've just heard this amazing story." I was like, "We need to make a show about that, but obviously we can't make that show in a theatre because the theatres are closed." So we contacted this museum, and we're like, "This is, a bit cheeky because you were doing something else, but I've heard about these letters. Can we make a show about it?" And we then went into this kind of world of immersive and interactive and promenade theatre, because it was the only way we could stage this, because we couldn't pack loads of people in a theatre. So we had 4 professional adult actors working with 12 kind of young, we call them young aspiring professionals. And that was because obviously we had this really strong link with young people's performing arts. So we wanted to have a bit of that in there as well. And this was giving those young people the opportunity to work in a professional environment, literally on a level playing field as professional adult actors in this immersive theatre environment. And since then, we've made 3 different shows for this museum based on different stories that the museum was telling at the time. We've done a 100-acre wood themed show in a park. We've done, what else have we done? For the last 4 Christmases, we have done a production of A Christmas Carol in lots of disused, old, derelict buildings in Malton, which is a little market town that I live in between York and Scarborough. And it's been really lovely because it's enabled us to make this work in a really immersive style, something completely different to anything I've ever done before, but has allowed us to keep things going from a real creative point of view that potentially doesn't fit into the model of the school that I own. So that's kind of what's that would be amazing arts. The choirs is something I've done more recently. I realised that actually, because I've done PQA for such a long time, I was doing such a lot of things that were so within my comfort zone, because PQA was my thing. Because PQA was my thing, I could just do it in a safe way, safe to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'd had that moment. I think it was around the time that we were going to have our daughter, and I was like, "This is completely out. I mean, having a child, completely unfathomable and out of my comfort zone." And it was that like personal shock factor. I was like, and I suddenly had this real like deep dive into myself, and I realised, hang on a minute. Ever since I've left university, I've done this, and I felt really safe because I've worked for myself, and it's been quite straightforward. So I then vowed to myself I was going to do things that were out of my comfort zone. I've always been a singer. I've never run a choir before. I've done a bit of work with adults, not a huge amount, and I decided to partner up with an organisation called the Sing Space, and they run musical theatre choirs across the country for adults. To open one in Malton, first of all, and honestly, I've been doing it for about 18 months now, and I now run the York one as well. And that's been just amazing because it's 90 minutes where, for me personally, you get that creative outlet again. I'm in the room delivering face to face with those adults, with those kind of performers, community performers. But I think working with adults, there's this a real shared appreciation for time that you don't get with children and young people, because they're just like going off to all these activities and school and parties and all the rest of it, and it's just an endless amount of time for them. But for adults, they're coming through the doors at 7:30. First of all, I've got them there. Certainly this time of year, it's dark, it's cold. I've got them out of their house and off the sofa or whatever they were doing to come and spend 90 minutes with me. First of all, that's like brilliant. And then, yeah, I can just see them come in. It's amazing. See them come in about 25 past 7. And by 7:45, 20 minutes later, they just look lighter. They've got massive smiles on their faces. And, I'm talking about parents, teachers, NHS workers, council workers, all of these different jobs that they've got, and with so many different personal and professional stresses and worries, and you literally see those things fall off them. And by 9 o'clock when we're finished, the atmosphere in that room is electric. I mean, I get home and it's me doing the job, it's me delivering it. But when I get home, I'm buzzing. I can't stop. I can't come down from that. It takes absolutely ages. And that's been really, really special. And I think it's a lovely compliment because I absolutely adore children's performing arts education. It's the thing I'm the most passionate about of all things. But I think doing this that's enabled me to step outside of my comfort zone, get that creative outlet again, and actually work with a completely different group of people that I wasn't working with before, is just, I feel so fulfilled doing all of those things together now. It felt like something that was missing and that's now there. So that feels really lovely as well.
I can hear it radiating out of you. I can see it. There is something about singing that just is like no other thing on earth as well, in my opinion. So doing it with other people, with live music, it's just like, just amazing, coming together as a community. And I think it's really common for so many performing arts professionals who are theatre school owners to pour their absolute heart and soul into their students and their school community, that sometimes we do neglect our own creativity. And of course, don't get me wrong, we can be creative when we're creating our shows and our showcases and maybe even in our exam work. But when you're doing something where you actually step away from working with young people and do something a little bit different, is where we really get those huge creative sparks, I think. So
Yeah,
it's really
100%.
interesting. And I think that for a lot of us, it's something that might sometimes be last on the list for us to do, but it just needs to be a higher priority because I think it makes us better leaders, better teachers, and then we can bring more of that creativity for the students as well.
And these things, they don't take a huge amount of time. I think that was what was putting me off. I was like, I don't have time to do that because I'm already so busy with what I already do. And But actually, if you, as you say, bring it up the priority list and make time, it positively impacts everything else as well. Yeah, it's really, really
Yeah,
special.
I really believe that for sure. Well, of course, you are running a very large performing arts business and doing lots of extra creative activities and other companies as well. So that can be really demanding. So, how do you personally remain grounded and connected to why you started all of these amazing ventures when things maybe feel more busy than usual? Stretched, maybe you feel a little bit overwhelmed? What do you do to stay grounded?
Well, I think first of all, I think it's about really trying to have those days off. And this is something we've done again since becoming parents. We take 2 days off a week. We don't work on a Monday or a Tuesday. And that's kind of our weekend. And yes, of course, there's the odd message and the odd urgent thing. And, as soon as you get a notification on your phone, makes you think about work. But it's just about trying to make that really, really special family reset time. That's kind of been really important. But I think spanning right through the week, through your entire lifestyle, because I don't think things aren't quite as simple as a work-life balance. You can't do that when you're a business owner. It's about everything coexisting as happily and as comfortably as possible at all times. So I think it's important to go back to those key questions and the why, and why did we do this in the first place. And people always talk about it, and I think it's so easy because people talk about finding your why and knowing what your why is so much. I think it can quite easily get ignored as a piece of advice, but as soon as you do that and spend a bit of time thinking about that, everything feels a lot more manageable. You don't mind sending the quick message on an evening when it's meant to be your day off if it's going to contribute to that why. You also don't mind, packing loads of shows in and doing all those big amazing things that might be really, really, physically tiring because you're contributing to that. And I think as long as you can remind yourself every so often of what that is, I think it helps to ground you and remind you of why you're doing all of this in the first place and why you set out to do it all those years ago.
I think that's a really good reminder. Really good reminder. I love that, James. So, looking back over your journey so far, what do you think has surprised you most about yourself as a leader?
I think just generally where I've ended up. As I said at the beginning, like I was so young. I was just coming out of university. I had no plans for it to end up like this. I didn't know what my plan was going to be, but I didn't think it was going to be this. I didn't think this was even possible. I mean, it's an absolute dream, to be able to go out and every single day go out and do what I want to do as a job. So I think what surprised me the most is just the ability to do it, and the fact that I've managed to get this 25 people to come on board and these 500 students to come and believe in us every single week. That means such a lot. I think the other thing that surprised me is what we've just been talking about. Is you can go on so many years and think, oh wow, this is amazing, and look what we've achieved, and then it takes a life change, like having a child, to come along, and you think, hang on a minute, I only know and I only feel comfortable doing this. And there's all of this that we can be exploring, or that we might need to explore, because life might send us in those directions. And it's about having that chance to take a breath and go, okay, cool, this is amazing, but am I pushing myself as well? Actually learning to do that has made me a better leader as well, because I've reminded myself of a leader in two senses: a leader of a team and a leader of children and young people. A leader of a team, because I've reminded myself of what it's like to plan a session, deliver it, feel that instant response, go home thinking that was amazing, or I'm never doing that again because that was absolutely horrific, or somewhere in between. But also a leader of young people, because you're putting yourself in that perspective of feeling nervous again and maybe not 100% sure of what you're doing. And that's what our children feel like every single time they walk through our doors. Obviously, we're nurturing that and we're doing amazing jobs all over the country and the world at making that fantastic and supportive, but they are feeling nervous and they are feeling apprehensive. And I think it's important to put yourself in those shoes at times as well, so that you remind yourself of what that feels like. Because then you can support people in a better way.
Incredible. Absolutely brilliant. I'm so pleased that you have found life outside of your comfort zone as well and found fulfillment. And I absolutely love that. It's so exciting. I'm so excited for what's to come for you as well, and for your brand and for your business. James, you've given us so many amazing pieces of advice, and you've given some tips, and you've shared your story so beautifully. But if you had to give one piece of advice to a fellow creative or a fellow performing arts business owner who maybe is feeling a little bit stuck or a bit unsure at the moment, what would that be?
My piece of advice would be, as I've just mentioned, it would be to go back to an individual's why, and it can be something so simple. Mine is to create environments where people feel like they're part of something, part of a community, and valued. That is the only important thing to me. And I think you can then decide, whatever that thing is that you're feeling stuck with, whether it's a career choice or somebody who you're working with that you're potentially not quite aligning with, like, is that situation or that person or that thing or that project contributing to my why? And if it's not, it's potentially, whilst it might be quite a difficult decision to make or conversation to have, because it is difficult, it might be worth not doing that anymore. But if it is, take a breather, allow yourself to reset, and just make sure that that thing really is continuing to do that. And that's what I found, and that's where I felt the most fulfilled. If it's doing those things, it's a great thing to do. And then you just really love doing it. And I brought my entire family on board. Do you know what I mean? And it's great, and I love it. And I think if you can find that why and be really strict on yourself and making sure that everything you do aligns with that, then you're going to feel fulfilled.
Being aligned with your why. Yes, absolutely. James, thank you so much. Where can people find you if they'd like to hear more about you, work with you, connect with you? Where do you usually hang out?
So on Instagram, I am just at James Aconley, and from there in my bio is all of my various other bits and bobs as well. I'm on LinkedIn as well at James Aconley, and on Facebook, all those different brands. So the various PQAs, Be Amazing Arts, and Malton and York Musical Theatre Choirs.
Fantastic. And I'll link all of that up in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for joining me today, James.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
And thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Acting Coach Network podcast. If you loved what you heard, make sure you're following. And if you've got a moment, I'd love you to leave a quick review or share the episode with someone else who might just need it. You can find me on Instagram at I am Savannah Madden. And if you prefer watching conversations, all of the video episodes are available on my YouTube channel. Just search for Savannah Madden and hit subscribe to join us there too. And if you're looking for support to grow your business, I'm offering 3-month one-to-one coaching programs where we can get to the bottom of what you most need help with in your business. And you can also find my latest free resource in the show notes. I'll be back soon with more real conversations, expert insights, and tools to help you build a business you love. Until next time, keep going, stay kind to yourself, and I'll see you very soon.